Ever feel like you're stuck on a treadmill, waiting for a big break that never comes? So many of us are holding our breath for life, to magically shift for the perfect opportunity, the right person, that one lucky moment. But here's a hard truth: life doesn't transform while you're passively waiting. It transforms when you actively do. And that kind of real change, it's not some sudden explosion. It's built, bit by bit, day by day, through consistent choices, through sharp awareness, through deliberate repetition. Hear this once, and it might light a spark. Live this daily, and it will fundamentally rewire your internal operating system. Because the core principle is disarmingly simple: your outer world cannot truly change until your inner world does. Each morning, as you surface from sleep, you face a quiet but monumentally important choice. Will you replay yesterday's script, or will you step boldly into the future you say you want? That precious sliver of time, before the world's clamor floods in, before your thumb hits the scroll, before your first word is uttered, that's not just any moment. It's your sacred ground. It's the fresh canvas most people treat like scrap paper. They jolt awake and immediately surrender that power to the digital noise. They're checking notifications before they've even noticed their own breathing. They're scrolling feeds before they've found their footing. They're reacting to demands before they've had a chance to reflect. And without even noticing, they're not truly living. They're just running old patterns. They're not constructing a new reality. They're just repeating the old one. Every day becomes a carbon copy of the last because they never pause long enough to interrupt the ingrained cycle. And so, their deeply etched habits take the wheel, running on autopilot. Their thoughts become echoes of what they've already consumed, and their existence turns into a slow, faded replay of everything they've already experienced. This is precisely why countless people feel trapped, not from a lack of desire, but from a lack of a defining morning ritual. They wake up hoping for a different day, without ever dedicating that first critical hour to designing it, the very hour that sets the tone for everything that follows. But listen, the space between a life of disciplined creation and one of gradual self-destruction is incredibly narrow. It comes down to one conscious decision, one intentional breath, one dedicated hour. That's all it really takes to shift the entire momentum. 1 hour of deliberate alignment before the chaos of the day can cultivate the kind of profound clarity that reroutes your whole life's trajectory. And that clarity, it doesn't shout. It accumulates slowly, silently, with immense power. Not in some flashy, dramatic breakthrough, but in the small, consistent actions that build an unbreakable bridge of trust between the person you are right now and the person you intuitively know you can become. When you claim that hour and dedicate it purely to yourself, not to inflate your ego, not as an escape, but for deep, internal alignment, you fundamentally alter the course of your day. And when you string enough of those transformed days together, you transform your entire life. You cease living in a state of constant reaction and begin living from a place of conscious creation. You stop being pulled by external energies and start generating your own powerful current. You stop surrendering your precious attention to the loudest, most demanding voice in the room and start deliberately feeding the inner voice you've chosen, the energy you've cultivated, the direction you've set. This is where true transformation ignites, not in fleeting emotion but in solid structure, in the repeatable, conscious decision to train your mind before the world attempts to hijack it. That's why this moment, this insight, this very breath can't be a one-off feel-good hit. It must become a daily, unwavering ritual, not just when it's convenient, not just when you're feeling motivated. Every single day, relentlessly, with a sense of sacred purpose. Because it's repetition that forges your identity, and it's your identity that dictates your behavior. You don't rise to new heights by sheer willpower alone. You rise by intentional programming, by consciously choosing what you feed your mind when it's most receptive, when it's most malleable. And that prime time is always the morning, before the barrage of emails, before the cacophony of the day, before the world starts demanding pieces of you. That is your training ground. That is when you must decide with clarity who you are, and then reinforce that truth until it becomes your unshakable reality. If you genuinely want to change your actions, don't start by wrestling with your behavior. Start with your environment. Start with what you consciously consume when your mental defenses are lowest and your spirit is most open and listening. Feed it strength. Feed it purpose. Feed it profound silence. And then, over time, that disciplined intake will give you back a new, empowered identity. An identity that no longer needs to try harder, because it simply doesn't resonate with weakness anymore. An identity that doesn't live in fear of slipping because its foundational standards have fundamentally shifted. If you truly desire a different future, change what you repeat, not just what you dream about, not merely what you talk about. but what you do. And what you do with unwavering consistency ultimately becomes who you are. No matter how far you've strayed, no matter how many days feel wasted, you are always just one morning away from reclaiming your path. But you absolutely must start now. You must fiercely protect that golden hour that builds your future self. Not someday, not when you feel ready, the now. The world will relentlessly vie for your attention, but if you dedicate yourself to yourself first, every single day you won't just be keeping up, you'll be leading. You'll create. You'll rise. People often say, I crave peace. I want unshakable confidence. I need laser focus. But these are not qualities you stumble upon by accident. They're not gifts someone can just hand to you. They don't magically appear through inspiring quotes, sheer luck, or a sudden mood swing. They are not rewards that materialize when the timing feels perfect. They are built, they are earned, they are trained like a muscle. And just like muscle, they only grow through consistent, intentional resistance. Peace isn't something you just wander into. It's forged in the crucible of silence. Not just the absence of external noise, but deep inner silence, the kind of quiet you actively protect, the kind you fight for, the kind you build firm boundaries around so you can finally hear your own breath, your own truth again. You don't achieve peace by merely hoping for less chaos. You achieve peace by becoming the kind of person who is no longer governed by chaos. Confidence isn't a trait you're born with. It doesn't magically bloom when life is going perfectly. It's something you earn slowly and quietly by consistently keeping the promises you make to yourself. Every single time you declare, I will do this, and then you follow through, you send a potent message to your subconscious, I am someone I can rely on. That's the bedrock where true confidence is built. Not in external applause, not in validation from others, but in the small, private decisions you repeat when no one is watching. Real confidence isn't loud, it doesn't need to shout. True confidence is evident in how you enter a room without needing to explain yourself, in how you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively, in how you lead, not with bluster, but with quiet certainty. That certainty is born from trust, and trust is born from consistency. Focus, too, is not a gift, it's a discipline. It's not about waiting for motivation to strike or having the perfect, undisturbed environment. It's about consciously cutting through the noise, again and again, every single day, until your mind finally grasps that you will no longer chase every fleeting distraction, that you will no longer reflexively check every notification, that you will no longer allow your precious attention to be hijacked by things and people who don't value it. You train your mind like you train a beloved dog. You teach it to sit, to stay, to return to your command, and at first it will resist, it will run wild. But with consistent practice it learns to obey, it begins to settle, and from that cultivated stillness, your work becomes deeper, your thoughts achieve greater clarity, your presence becomes undeniably potent. These qualities, peace, confidence, focus, are not innate talents. They are hard-won disciplines, and discipline doesn't show up only when you feel good. It couldn't care less about your fleeting emotions. It shows up every single day in the relentless repetition, in the unwavering structure. That morning you desperately wanted to stay in bed, but you got up anyway. That evening you were exhausted and wanted to quit, but you pushed through. Discipline isn't sexy, it isn't glamorous, but it is profoundly powerful, because when you systematically build it, you begin to sculpt a life that is no longer held hostage by your feelings. You must internalize this fundamental truth. Every single day, without exception, you are being programmed, either by the world around you or by your own conscious design. There is no neutral gear. There is no off switch. Everything you consume, everything you listen to, everything you watch, everything you idly scroll past, it's all writing code directly into your mind. It's actively shaping your thoughts. It's meticulously defining your focus. It's subtly forming your sense of self-worth. And if you do nothing, if you passively allow the world to write that code for you, then the world inevitably wins. The advertisements win, the drama wins, the gossip wins, the relentless noise becomes the soundtrack to your life, and eventually, you won't even recognize where your own desires originated. You won't even remember what true peace feels like, because your entire internal system has been constructed by your external environment. But you can break that cycle. You can take back control. It won't happen in a single day. It won't happen by accident, but it will happen if you commit. Every morning, make a conscious choice to plug into something that sharpens you, not something that numbs you, something that reminds you of who you truly are, not who the world pressures you to be, something that quiets the external noise and amplifies your inner clarity. Wisdom isn't hidden in some secret vault. It's simply drowned out by the daily deluge. But you can always return to it. You can build a morning ritual that acts as a filter for your mind before the world rushes in to fill it. You can create a sacred space that nourishes your chosen direction before the distractions arrive to pull you off course. And when you do that daily, when that deliberate structure becomes your unwavering foundation, everything changes. You don't chase after peace, you walk in it. You don't fake confidence, you radiate it. You don't beg for focus, you live from it. Because you didn't just wait for these qualities to magically show up. You built them meticulously, like a master craftsman, like a dedicated warrior, like a person who knows that while the world outside may be loud, they are intentionally louder, clearer, and stronger on the inside. You were not born to be perpetually overwhelmed. That constant, nagging sense of urgency, fatigue, and chaos that so many people wear like an ill-fitting second skin, that's not your natural state. It's a symptom of drift, of quiet neglect. You were not built to be chronically distracted. Your mind wasn't designed to juggle 20 things at once. Your soul wasn't wired to be fragmented across endless browser tabs, text messages, and trivial decisions. And yet, that's precisely how most people live, scattered, exhausted, and numb. Not because they are inherently weak, but because they've forgotten how to be truly still. They've forgotten how to listen deeply. They've forgotten the immense power that returns when you stop surrendering your life to the noise and start intentionally reclaiming it through disciplined practice. You were not created to feel powerless within your own mind. You were built for clarity, for strength, for profound awareness. That mental fog you sometimes feel, that gnawing anxiety, that relentless pressure, those are the direct results of allowing the world to program you before you take the reins and program yourself. It happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. You stop choosing yourself first. You stop carving out dedicated time for silence. You skip that crucial morning stillness. You trade genuine presence for frantic performance. And over time, your inner structure begins to silently decay. Not because there's something fundamentally wrong with you, but because anything consistently neglected will inevitably deteriorate. When you stop showing up for your mind begins to work against you. When you stop giving your nervous system the space it needs to breathe and regulate, it starts gasping for control in unhealthy ways. When you stop creating your day with intention, the day inevitably begins to own you. But here's the crucial insight: decay is not the final word. It's a signal. It's an urgent invitation to return, to come back to yourself. And the doorway back is far simpler than most people imagine. You don't need to undertake a massive, overwhelming overhaul of your entire life overnight. You simply need to sit down with yourself every single day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. No phone, no noise, just your breath, just stillness. That's where the profound reconnection begins. Your spine naturally straightens, not from an act of ego, but from a deep sense of remembrance. You begin to breathe more deeply, not because it's some trendy wellness hack, but because you've finally allowed your body the space to soften and release. Your thoughts start to quiet down, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you consciously stopped feeding the frenzy. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something ancient and powerful stirs within you: a deep presence, a solid groundedness, an undeniable clarity. And you begin to remember, I am not my fear, I am not my past failures, I am not the anxious, looping voice in my head. I am the observer. I am the one who chooses how to respond. That realization isn't a small thing. It's the fundamental reset. It's the very root of personal sovereignty, the true beginning of authentic power. Because the moment you remember that you have a choice, the world begins to lose its suffocating grip on you. That is the absolute key. You cannot control the external world. You never could. But you can control how you meet it. You can control how you show up to the inevitable chaos, how you hold your internal frame steady in the middle of life's storms. You can control your posture, how you sit, how you stand, how you move through the world with presence instead of panic. You can control your words when you speak, how you speak, and whether you speak from a place of raw emotion or centered clarity. You can control your habits, what you consistently do when no one is watching, how you consciously utilize your first hour, what you deliberately choose to give your precious energy to. These aren't just minor victories. These are your anchors. Your daily rituals become your constant reminder that you are not lost. You are actively building something meaningful, even when no one else sees it. And when you do this, when you consciously take that control back, when you choose to live from a place of presence instead of relentless pressure, life itself begins to shift. Life begins to respect you, not in some mystical, magical sense, but in very practical, tangible ways. You show up to conversations with more weight, more gravity. You walk into rooms and people sense something different about you, not louder, not flashier, just deeper, more centered. Your consistent habits begin to speak volumes for you. Your energy starts to communicate who you are before you even utter a single word. Opportunities begin to gravitate towards you, not because you desperately chased them, but because you cultivated yourself into someone who is genuinely ready for them. People begin to trust you, not because you forced it or faked it, but because your ingrained discipline now carries the authentic weight that your words once struggled to convey. This is the profound power of return, the power of quiet, consistent structure, the power of showing up for yourself not just once, not only when it's easy, but every single day. If you can commit to that, even in the smallest dedicated window of time, you begin to reclaim the very essence the world is constantly trying to steal from you: your presence. And presence, make no mistake, is power. Not loud, not aggressive, but unshakable, quiet strength. Now, let me share with you the single most important truth. The one that most people completely overlook while they're busy chasing complexity, jumping from one fleeting insight to the next, from one temporary motivational high to another. Here it is: life does not change when you intellectually understand something once. It changes when you consciously remember and embody it every single day. You don't evolve from one powerful quote you read. You don't transform from watching one emotionally charged video. The human mind simply doesn't work that way. The nervous system doesn't rewire itself that way. Real change is not a singular event. It's a meticulous layering, a deliberate wiring, a groove that gets progressively deeper and stronger through consistent, focused repetition. That's precisely why monks repeat their mantras for hours. That's why elite warriors run the same drills relentlessly, again and again. That's why master musicians rehearse the same scales until their fingers move without conscious thought. It's not because they're slow learners, it's because they understand a fundamental principle that most people miss: mastery is not built by sporadic inspiration. It's built by unwavering ritual. Wisdom that is not regularly revisited turns to dust. Knowledge that is not consistently reinforced becomes mere noise. If you genuinely want to alter the trajectory of your life, stop chasing more and more information. Instead, choose one core truth and burn it deeply into your system through daily, focused repetition. This is why your morning truly matters. This is why what you listen to, what you absorb in those first 10 minutes after waking, is so profoundly critical. Because that unique window of time when your brain is most open and receptive, when your subconscious is actively listening, when your body is gently awakening, that is precisely when the deepest reprogramming happens. Most people squander that golden window. They immediately check notifications. They fling open the floodgates to a torrent of distractions. They scroll through images that trigger insidious comparison, opinions that ignite volatile emotions, noise that fractures their precious attention, and then they wonder why their focus is shattered before noon, why they feel overwhelmed before they've even had breakfast. But it's not the world's fault. It's a fundamental lack of structure. It's a profound lack of personal ritual. One single, aligned message repeated daily will do more for your mindset than 100 random, unconsciously consumed inputs. The critical question is, which message are you choosing to repeat? Is it intentional? Is it aligned with your deepest values? Is it truly yours? If you repeat this message, this commitment to presence, this dedication to discipline, this cultivated mindset every single morning, something remarkably powerful begins to unfold. Your brain stops treating it as just another fleeting motivational moment and starts internalizing it as a direct command. You are no longer merely trying to be focused, you simply are focused. You are no longer constantly reminding yourself to stay on track. You simply stop drifting because you've meticulously trained yourself to return to your center. You've trained your mind to seek quietude before stimulation, to seek purpose before fleeting pleasure, to seek clarity before impulsive action. And from that deeply rooted place, your behavior naturally begins to change. Not because you're forcefully wrestling with it, but because this new way of being has become your fundamental baseline. Eventually, you won't need external reminders to be disciplined. You will simply act that way without internal negotiation, not because you're faking it, but because you've systematically taught your body to follow your conscious direction, not your scattered distractions. You won't need to hype yourself up to stay focused. You'll simply value your energy far too much to squander it. That's the inevitable outcome when consistent repetition replaces mindless randomness. Your nervous system becomes intimately familiar with peace. Your mind starts to genuinely trust your own word. Your daily habits begin to powerfully reinforce your chosen identity. And from that strong, authentic identity, you start showing up differently in every single area of your life. Your speech naturally slows down, carrying more weight. Your reactions become calmer, more considered. Your planning becomes sharper, more strategic. You start walking like someone who isn't desperately begging for direction, because you've already consciously chosen yours. That is real freedom, not an illusion of perfection. Not the fantasy of always being in complete control, but the tangible reality of being present enough to consciously choose your next step, to recognize when you're drifting off course and gently correct it, to notice when your precious energy is leaking and decisively pull it back, to wake up each morning and, instead of being immediately pulled by the world's demands, you consciously center yourself before the world even has a chance to speak. That profound freedom doesn't come from innate talent. It certainly doesn't come from fleeting emotion. It comes directly from what you intentionally allow into your mind every single day, what you listen to, what you read, what you meditate on. That curated input becomes your internal voice. That becomes your unwavering compass. And if you do it with unwavering discipline, it becomes your undeniable edge. You want to live differently, then think differently repeatedly. You want to build unshakable clarity, feed it to yourself consistently. You want to embody true discipline, repeat the process until it becomes your very identity. That's the gateway. Not more but deeper, not louder but clearer. The person who controls their inputs will inevitably control their direction. And the person who controls their direction no longer needs more motivation, because they have become it. So, if this message truly resonates with you, don't just listen to it once. Don't let it be a passing feeling that evaporates the moment the world gets loud again. Let it return. Let it take root. Let it become an integral part of your mental and emotional wiring. Because the undeniable truth is repetition is how the human brain learns to trust, how it learns to integrate. Not once in a while, not sometimes, but every single day. Come back to this message. Make it your mental alarm clock. Not just for your phone, but for your mind. Play it in the quiet of the morning before the world grabs for your attention. Let it be the soundtrack to your stillness. Let it consciously shape your first thoughts, your first breath, your very first decision of the day. This isn't about generating hype. It's about precision. It's about intentional programming. It's about systematically replacing the scattered, chaotic voices of fear, distraction, doubt, and pressure with one clear voice, one consistent tone, one unwavering rhythm, a voice that is focused, clear and deeply grounded, until that voice becomes undeniably your own. This is how true internal transformation happens, not by chasing 100 different fleeting messages, but by choosing one core message and repeating it until it becomes an inseparable part of your nervous system. Until your default setting is unwavering discipline. Until your internal self-talk is no longer a cascade of emotional noise, but a quiet, unshakable strength. And you won't need to announce it. You won't need to post about it. You'll just live it. You'll walk into your day with inherent structure, while everyone else is still lost in their feeds. You'll keep your word to yourself while others are still negotiating with their fluctuating feelings. You'll maintain your focus while others are constantly reacting. And slowly, steadily, your results will begin to tangibly change. Your confidence will start to feel deeply real. Your energy will become respected, not demanded. Not because you ask for it, but because you've cultivated yourself into someone who leads quietly and powerfully, without needing external validation or attention. This is the new standard: quiet, committed, relentless. So if that's the kind of internal architecture you're dedicated to building, subscribe, stay close, stay sharp, because this space is intentionally designed for people who don't just want fleeting motivation, but enduring structure. If you're truly serious about building your mornings around profound clarity, constructing your identity through consistent daily action, and mastering your energy before the world even gets a chance to touch it, then the next level of your journey is right here, waiting for you. It's not about seeking more hype. It's about cultivating more depth, a system, a rhythm, a conscious return every single day, not for attention but for profound, life-altering alignment. Repeat this message. Let it deeply penetrate your nervous system. Let it be your unwavering reminder. When your own discipline momentarily fades, let this message speak for you. On the days when your own inner voice feels shaky or uncertain, and with consistent time and practice, you won't need the message anymore, because you will have become it. Repeat it, live it, train it, and watch how your entire life begins to change quietly, powerfully, completely.